My grandmother once told us, and she had this plan to make sure that not a single grain of rice was left uneaten. So she devised this, might I say, evil plan to ensure that we eat everything. She told us that a single grain of uneaten rice represents a soul in the purgatory that will never make it to heaven. Imagine my shock and fear when I heard that. A 5-year-old kid being tasked of saving a life, of saving a soul. So of course, as a young, obedient, and gullible kid, I did what I was asked. I ate everything on the plate. I gobbled up her story alongside the heaps and heaps and heaps of rice. Besides having the access to the heaps and heaps of rice, my mother was able to provide us a very comfortable life. She was able to send us to the best schools. We had the latest toys and gadgets. We had clothes on our back, food on our stomach, and a roof over our head. Our life and their life was so different from each other that I find it very difficult to imagine the things that they experience because it felt so distant. It felt so unreal. It was imaginary. It took me some time to understand these hardships and these sufferings. Then one day, when I was 7 years old, something happened to me that changed everything. So I was walking around being a 7-year-old kid, doing cool 7-year-old kid stuff. So I was cool. I believe I was cool. Then I saw these farmers, rice farmers, drying rice by the roadside, which actually was a normal thing to see in the Philippines. But then the next thing horrified me. I saw people trampling over the rice, even cars and trucks, trampling over the rice, making them into fine powder, rendering them unedible. And then a thought popped into my head. Oh my God, the souls! What will happen to the souls? They will never make it to heaven. They might go to hell. I was mortified. But then I realized, these rice grains, they do not represent these imaginary souls that my grandmother was talking about. These rice grains represent the souls of every farmer, suffering because they don't have access to technology. They don't have the facilities or the warehouse wherein they can dry their rice safely. They don't have lands. And sometimes when they fight for their lands, they are killed. Our government are being blind and deaf to their demands. They don't have access to agricultural and technological innovation. And from that day on, I devoted my life in fighting for these injustices and empowering the farmers, even the fisher folks and indigenous peoples in the Philippines. So I took up political science, thinking that it would enable me to fight these injustices. I took up political science in the prestigious schools in the Philippines, and my coursework enabled me to interact with even more farmers and fisher folks in the Philippines. And that ignited my passion even more. After graduation, I took up law because I could see myself as attorney Germaine de Ruña, a lawyer for farmers and fisher folks. I could see it. I was so cool, like a 7-year-old kid again. But then when I was studying law, something felt off. Studying law made me feel separate from the people that I want to serve. Don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing the law. I love the law. Greg, I love the law. Maybe it wasn't for me. I realized the best way to serve the farmers and the rural peoples is to work with them hand in hand. So I took all the courage that I had and turned my back to the law and embraced a new career, a rural development advocate. Currently, I am now serving as the Regional Director of FILDRA. It is a national network of NGOs working for agrarian reform and rural development, fighting side by side with the farmers and the fisher folks and the indigenous peoples. We are now able to provide access to technology, create social enterprises, create linkage between the partner communities and governments, and as well as funding institutions. And we are now able to help them cultivate the lands that are rightfully theirs. But sometimes, doing this line of work can be very lonesome. It makes you feel that you are alone. That is why I would like to thank platforms such as the Alliance for Science for making me realize that I am no longer alone in this fight. It made me open my eyes that there is a world out there of people such as you guys standing side by side and working towards a common goal with a common mission at heart. For 12 weeks, we were taught about the ideologies, the science, the legalities, sometimes boring aspects of the law. Again, sorry, Greg. But more than that, we were taught how to communicate with passion, with purpose, with intent, and with the heart. And as science communicators, we have to keep talking. We have to keep talking for the voiceless, the marginalized communities, the farmers, the fisher folks, and the indigenous peoples. This work, communicating science, specifically biotechnology, is a very difficult thing to do. Am I right? But always remember that there are more difficult things out there. It is more difficult to work day in and day out in a farm under the scorching heat of the sun, doing back-breaking farm work only to find out that your crops have been infested by pests, that your crops are now dried up because of drought, and your crops are now drowned fully because of floodwater due to the adverse effects of climate change. It is tiresome, sometimes lonesome, and difficult. But always remember, if given a chance to let your voices be heard, always tell the stories of people that we are serving. The farmers who are in dire need of agricultural and biotechnological innovation. Because when we speak, we now speak not for ourselves, but for the people that we serve. When given a chance to talk, be it in a small village gathering, or in an auditorium like this, or even in a high-level political forum, always keep them in mind. Because now, I am and you are now talking for a farmer in Burkina Faso, Francois Traoré, for Kenyan farmer, Christopher and Mutua, for American farmer, Pauline, for an eggplant farmer, Dalil Udin in Bangladesh, for Francis Habimana, a farmer in Rwanda, for Alberta, a farmer in Ghana, and for Mbuatu, a woman farmer in Zimbabwe. And we are now talking for the rice farmers in the Philippines who are drying their rice by the roadside. Thank you.